Hey everyone, James from TDB here. Today I am going to be talking a little bit just about the pros and cons, a little bit open-endedly about buying tea out west versus kind of being out in, let's say, Taiwan, Hong Kong, or somewhere in the east where you have access to kind of that big market. The main difference, I would say, is when you are out there, you can definitely do a lot more in-person shopping. In fact, I mean, when Westerners travel there, it's not like they're shopping online on Taiwan stores or whatever. They're usually going to the different shops. They're doing kind of the whole process, which is, I think, what most people would do. You go and you taste the tea, and if you like it, you go ahead and buy some. So it's very, very different experience than out west. It's quite a bit more social as well because you're interacting. The shop owners are trying to figure out what you like and trying to figure out like if you have time for another tea, potentially trying that. And, there's a lot of things that are technically possible to explore and do in the West, but it's just much, much harder. So shout outs to Hanzi. Go check out his Substack too. We both went on Taiwan trips in basically the last year or so. And so I think we both kind of found that it sort of reinvigorated our passion. We've both been into tea for quite some time. Me a little bit longer than him, but, we've both been, kind of in the tea community for 7-8 years at least. And so... So you can kind of end up in sort of like this sleepwalking phase, which is kind of what I think of I was in from kind of 2020 till 2024, 2025 after I went. And it just sort of reinvigorated it. And I didn't necessarily have like a big grand shopping tour in Taiwan or whatever. I mean, I spent some money and I went to some tea shops, but frankly, with my daughter being under 1 year old, I could only basically sneak out during naps, and it wasn't like I had too much time. So I was able to meet up with like Alex and had a great time meeting him at one of the tea houses there and a couple tea shops, but I didn't do all that much more beyond that. When I came back home, I found that, I was kind of excited about tea again. I was excited to dive more into it. So it's just interesting the way that kind of opens things up. So some of the pros of being in the West, and there are some legitimate pros to shopping online and being a little bit further apart, is that you have a lot more time to sample and deliberation. It's much more possible to just kind of hang out and not accumulate all too much while you get your feet under you, either by buying a cake, trading it around, or buying a bunch of samples, that sort of thing. And so I think in East, when you're out there and you're going to different shops, you're going to end up picking up stuff. You're going to feel obligated to pick up cakes from places, and you probably should if you go there and you drink tea for a while there. So Alex on his Instagram has kind of termed these pity buys, which I think is a great term to put them, where it's just sort of like teas where you end up, feeling like you have to buy something. So you're trying to pick something that is okay, but maybe is like you wouldn't pick up if you really had more of a choice there. And so I think it's very, very easy to kind of start this sort of stamp collecting. That's easy to kind of fall down that rabbit hole there. Of course, it's totally possible to do the exact same thing out west, but I do think you have if you can have discipline and a little bit more deliberation, you can avoid some of those traps there. So really easy to just kind of let money slowly seep away in that same thing. The most obvious con is you just have reduced access. There are certain teas that you're just not going to be able to get out here. It's like aged oolongs. I guess you could technically buy one or two. They're usually too expensive or just not that good, oftentimes both. But you only really have a handful of choices, whereas out there in Taiwan specifically, you can buy all kinds of stuff. And it's interesting the thing that Quiche Teas, who is basically just drop shipping Taishan He, can do. Because in many ways, and I don't want to demean Taishan He or Quiche, but it's not altogether a very unusual tea shop that is based in Taiwan. It's simply one that we actually have access to. And so having access to something that is more focused on selling to the local customer base there in Taiwan, it opens stuff up and you realize that it's like, wait, wow, I could buy this and it's way, way less expensive, or it's much easier to access from this vendor, Quiche Teas, than it is from, buying through essentially another middleman if you're going through King Tea Mall or whatnot. So it's, that's definitely a huge con to being kind of based in the West. And some of the cons of less access, it's just going to depend. It's like Taiwan versus elsewhere. Age Duolongs, for instance, that I just mentioned. Like Hong Kong traditional pu'er. Hong Kong, of course, is probably the best place to get that kind of thing. And, in Taiwan, you can find that sort of dodgier, traditionally stored pu'er. But it's a little bit harder. And frankly speaking, from what I found there, it's not as good. And, I haven't tried everything, so it is totally possible to find it, but I've been far more satisfied with kind of the Hong Kong shops there. And the prices just end up being a little bit less because you can avoid these like middlemen and whatnot. And shipping as well. You don't have to do that. So one thing you can feel obligated to, especially when we're buying from all these international shippers, is like, oh man, I got to spend $20 for shipping for this one cake. But it's like $25 if I buy 3 cakes. So, of course, it makes some economic sense to just, buy a couple more, buy in bulk. And so you end up accumulating cakes that way, too. The socialization aspects are also big. I think that's a big kind of learning point that you can do. Not that, the tea vendors are your friends or they're going to teach you perfectly. But there's a lot you can learn from just sitting down and having a cup of tea with someone that has made this tea many, many times. I don't think it's a coincidence that Hansi and I both went out there and it sort of reinvigorated our love for tea. And I think, in some ways it just sort of reshaped my vision and allowed me to see certain angles and things that, I was actually excited to explore more, even though I've been into tea for so long. So that concludes this Inbetweenisode. Let me know how you liked it on just sort of the reflections of traveling there and different things that you have access to here in the West. I mean, another good example, just harkening back to an earlier point too, of a tea that you could have better access to out there is like in Malaysia, they're supposedly like much more into lubao and whatnot. And so I don't think it's a total coincidence that a lot of the best lubao has come through teas we like via Malaysia. So another type of tea that, we have a couple options out here, but you're just going to have a lot more options probably if you are able to travel there. So thanks for tuning in. I will see y'all next time.